welcome to another amazing episode of the Minorities Report podcast. My name is Antonio Alcazar.
Yo, and I'm Tech Nor.
And today we reviewed the 1974 hit, Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
Did you know that he wrote all the music?
Who, Mel Brooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he did that for like almost every movie he did, bro.
He's the most up his ass.
Mel Brooks.
He's the most up his ass person.
Let's talk about Mel Brooks for a second.
All right,
bro.
go ahead. Yeah.
Mel Brooks, you know him from this. You know him from Monty Python shit. You know him from Spaceballs, obviously one of the most famous besides Blazing Saddles. A lot of movies. Of course, the man is still alive. God bless him. Mel Brooks is you know, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who wouldn't say he's a comedic genius. He's
a comedic genius.
He is probably one of the best comedy directors in history. Definitely within the last like 30 plus years. I can't think of a single
50 years.
Yeah. 50 years. I'm sorry. So, I mean, the guy is just there's not a movie he's made that people are like, that's dog shit. And that's important.
People?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's important. It's Mel Brooks, man. And everybody out there listening to this, y'all know you some Mel Brooks because y'all definitely have seen at least Spaceballs.
Oh man. All right.
Merchandising.
Let's get into
this movie, man. So this movie starts off and it's a Wild West and you know they got the show tune kind of thing playing on and whatnot, and man, it jumps into building that old railroad.
Yep.
This takes place shortly, like dozen years or so after
10.
slavery.
Yeah.
Was it 10 years after slavery?
1874.
Okay, I thought it was a dozen, but yeah, you're probably right. So 1874. They're building the old railroad.
Mel Brooks, as the governor, says that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Sure.
Okay. And the black guys are, doing their shit on that old railroad. White Southern boys roll up, man, and we jump right into the fucking racism right off the bat.
Real heavy. Leans into it. You know, somebody told me that Richard Pryor had written this movie.
Yes.
It turns out Richard Pryor was one of 5 writers on this movie.
Yes, of course. He wrote a lot of the black lines and things like that.
Well, that's why they probably hired him.
Yeah. Of course.
So that they could have an excuse.
Importantly, Richard Pryor is a comedic genius as well. Another person that wrote for this obviously
was a comedic genius.
What?
Was a
comedic genius,
sure,
obviously.
Yeah.
Because Paul Mooney also did a lot of stuff for Richard Pryor and all that type of shit. So there's talk that he had kind of a hand in this as well. Did you like Paul Mooney? I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with him because of the Chappelle Show.
I know Paul Mooney. Was he in this movie?
No, he wasn't in the movie.
Oh, okay.
He supposedly helped write parts of this movie.
Okay, I got
and you can they have similar comedy styles, Pryor and Mooney. So Mooney, I don't know how much stand-up Mooney ever did or anything like that.
I've never seen any Mooney stand-up.
Though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
I only know him. The only familiarity I have with him is for Chappelle's show.
Of course. So right off the bat, like these white dudes are like, "Come on, y'all, let's hear some of those Negro spirituals or whatever, right?" And they start singing, like this show tune though and shit. And they're like, "That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear some shit like what was the song they wanted to hear?"
They sing 2 of them. I forgot what they
Camptown
were.
Lady. Camptown Lady, sing this song, dude. And the black people are like, I don't know what
No, they're just laughing at them.
Well, no, because it starts off, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What song are you talking about or whatever? And then all the white dudes start singing and dancing Camptown Lady. And the black dudes are just clowning on them, and shit.
And I get that this was very anti-racism.
The whole point of the movie is anti-racism.
For sure,
Yep. So things aren't going
in an incredibly crass way.
Right. That's Mel Brooks, bro. Like, I mean, that's how Mel Brooks has always been.
Sure.
So
because he's
Young
a comedic
Frankenstein,
genius.
all that shit. Absolutely, dude. So the white dudes are like, hey, we're having a problem with an area down a little ways. We think there's some quicksand. Send 2 of the black dudes to go do it. So 2 of the black guys go to check it out.
When you say when you think of comedy genius,
yes,
to you that is comedy in the most obvious way possible. That's what genius means to you, in the most obvious way possible.
This is so not in the most obvious way possible.
This is so obvious. You're thinking it is almost not obvious.
That's how I would present this film.
Yeah.
This film is blatant in its way.
Yeah.
And that's why
the
it's
simplest jokes possible.
Right. And that's why the undertone of it is much more of an important message.
What's the undertone? The undertone is just like anti-racist stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but that was what undertone? That's like as overtone as possible. You're talking ham-fisted. This was as ham-fisted a thing as I've ever seen.
You are trying to, combat me for all the times that I have shitted on how ham-fisted your beloved Marvel is. So, anyways,
I'm just surprised that you're calling maybe the simplest jokes I've ever watched genius.
So
comedy genius.
Well, because here's the thing. I don't think so, man. I think you say that now because it's 2021. This was made in 1974, bro. It was written in the 1970s.
When this must have been not, I wouldn't say that this was subtextual or whatever.
So here's the thing.
I'd say that this was subversive. He probably, people were probably laughing because he was doing some very taboo stuff. But it's not that it was complex. This was simplicity.
I don't know about that because
it's like you're saying that it's genius because he was the first one to do it.
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, teaming up
it took a little balls, and I'd say that
I'd say more than a little.
Yeah, for sure, and especially for 1974,
right?
Probably had some balls for making this movie, but because this was 10 years after the Civil Rights Movement.
Yes,
so this was.
Within
Hot and fresh, this was probably pissing a lot of people off, and so I won't say that this guy didn't have some balls for making fun of white people on screen, but none of this was genius. This was all as simple as possible.
I disagree completely.
Every joke was just okay, yeah, of course.
No. So one of the things about Mel Brooks that's always in his films, the guy loves to do nonsensical shit in the background. In the background of what's going on, there's always insane, silly shit going on. We jump over to Hambly, I think that's his name, his office.
Headley.
Yes. We jump over to Headley's.
They keep calling him Hetty. Everybody calls him Hetty. Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I don't want to get too far. We'll get to that. So, anyways, they start dealing with Headley and the guy who's running the expansion of the railroad.
Sure, yeah.
And they start talking about what's going on and shit like that and how they're going to do things. And importantly, in the background, there's just pictures that make no sense whatsoever. Nonsensical things going on all over in the background. I fucking love that shit. So funny to me. Another example of comedic genius. So... They're like, how are we going to figure out what are we going to do to make this work out for us? We got to figure out some way to make this all work. The first thing they come up with, the other guy comes up with is, we'll kill the firstborn in each household. And Headley says, that's too Jewish for us. I laughed out loud. That shit is so funny to me. So then they start coming up with other ideas, and
for a person who throws around the word childish a lot, when it comes to what other people like, you sure do some very interesting.
This is
this
childish
is so
to
adult.
Me.
Oh my god,
yes,
the complexity is insane.
Because childish to me is
not obvious.
There's
and
no
simple.
kid that would understand that joke.
Oh, that's what childish means to you? Okay, all right.
There's no juvenile. You could say this comedy is juvenile, and I'll be on board with that.
Okay,
not childish.
All right,
so So they jump over to this little town, one of the towns where they're trying to get the railroad through.
What was up with the weird hanger guy, the hangsman? Why was he acting so weird? Is that a reference to something? I didn't get that.
That's just a thing. I mean, because Mel Brooks has that in a couple other movies and whatnot, the Executioner and shit. Yeah, the Executioner is just executing. And
But he's so weird. His mannerisms are really weird.
Yeah, I know. And so and
he's
that
got a weird idiot look.
That guy's been in a bunch of other Mel Brooks movies too.
Okay.
He played what the fuck is that guy's name? That's sidekick to Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. Igor. Yeah, he played Igor in Young Frankenstein.
Did he have that same kind of weird cadence?
Yes, he's very it's very weird like that. And
was the actor that weird, or was that just a character?
Yeah, he looks very awkward. You should check him out sometime. And now, remind me, is this the scene or is it the later scene where the hangsman is hanging a dude on a horse?
That's the latest.
Also, okay, all right. That made me laugh.
No, that was at the end of this scene.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure.
Yes,
when he's just like, hey, I got one more person for you, and he's just like, I couldn't possibly get him. He's got a guy on a horse.
Right. Yeah. So here's a funny thing too. So I was watching this movie. My son came down. It was for Father's Day or whatever, and I had to watch this movie for the podcast. Yeah. And so he sat down and watched it for. He laughed his ass off at this scene too. Yeah. He's like, "What the fuck is it on that horse for?"
Your older son or your kid?
Yes, the one who's just turned 20.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
So,
I was gonna hit you with it.
I know, of course you were. Yeah. So they jump over to the town, and the town is like dealing with all these Western like bad guys, obviously coming in doing their shit, and there's like complete nonsense going on with these fucking robbers. They're coming through, and like there's a guy in a new suit, and the suit gets off. That's the end of this suit.
Oh my god! Yeah, for sure. The guy that's getting pulled away.
Right.
That's the end of this suit joke. That punchline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get into it later.
So there's an old lady just getting punched over there, just beating the hell out of her.
What does she say?
So, I forgot.
She's just like, talk about a bad day.
Yes, talk about a bad day. I think that's what she says. And there's just... So here is like the one thing the things I don't love about Mel Brooks, and like this is like a Wayne's Brother thing too and shit, where they just have machine gun fire of jokes because one of these jokes is gonna hit with you, and there's like 35 jokes shot in like a short period of time, and you're gonna laugh at one of them. And I did laugh at one of them, but it is one of those things where this is him slipping away from his comedic genius in my opinion. So.
What? Why? This was the same kind of joke.
No, it's
just a lot of
It's not a clever joke, though.
None of these are clever jokes.
Yes, most of them are clever. So
all of them are obvious.
The town has a meeting, and they're going to. The preacher at first wants to like give up, and he's like, "We're getting the fuck out of here."
It's like if I slipped on a banana peel and fell on the ground, then I was just like, "I should learn to walk," and you're just like,
"Dude,
that's comedic genius."
So if you slipped on a banana peel and busted your shit, I'd be like, "Oh damn, is that dude all right?" If you slipped on a banana peel and then
I got up and said, "I should learn to walk,"
and you got up and were like, "That's the last time I use a human's body," I would laugh so hard.
Yeah.
Like I'd fall over laughing.
Jesus. Okay.
So,
wow.
All right. So
I'm learning more about
the town
you today than I in the last year of us recording.
The town is not going to give up, though. They're going to fight for their town. And the problem, though, is they need a new sheriff because the last sheriff's been killed. So we jump over to the governor's office. Mel Brooks is, of course, the governor, and he's a complete fucking clown. Then the meeting is adjourned, and they have to figure out how they're going to deal with this town.
There's a lot going on in this scene,
yes,
too.
There's tons of stuff going on in the scene. And then after they deal with the town, Headley starts talking to the governor, and they start talking about, like, who's going to pick up that thing? What's going to pick up that thing? No, I said, who's going to pick up...
Yeah.
They do, okay, so...
The Abbott and Costello thing?
Who's in first comedy?
Sure,
yeah, exactly. So, just more genius. So, they choose that... They're going to have this guy, Black Bart, or this dude named Bart, to be the sheriff. He's a black guy.
Yeah.
Because
from the beginning of the movie, the first guy.
Yes. The English man, Headley, he wants things to get fucked up. He wants people to get out of that town so they can...
like, we're going to send a black guy, and everybody's going to hate that shit.
Right, exactly. The black guy's going to be the sheriff, sent by the governor, so it's going to be...
If this doesn't make him leave, nothing's going to make him leave.
Right, exactly. And when the governor meets with them, that's when they're doing the whole shit, and he's like... Because the governor's such a fucking clown, he's like talking to Bart, and he's like, "Do you realize that you picked a black guy for the sheriff or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh, hold on, you go over there, you come over here.
Yeah, for
Do you
sure.
realize you got a black guy for the..."
Yeah.
Fucking great. So, anyways,
dude, you were rolling around when this was going on.
I was.
Yeah, you could barely handle it. You had to pause it so you could breathe.
Yeah. So he heads out to the town. Bart heads out to the town in an absolutely ridiculous outfit, and has Gucci bags with him, which is of course. He shows up and the whole town is there to like greet the new sheriff and whatnot, and
they're all super excited. Oh, dude, the scene where they were trying to get a new sheriff, in the church, was I'll bring this up again later, but that scene was funny. No, I won't say funny.
It is.
That scene was good.
Yes,
because they kept going like, "I agree with him," and then reiterating, and then somebody would go, "I agree with him," and then reiterate,
right?
And they just kept that going. Scene was okay.
Yeah. So Bart shows up, and the town is beyond shocked that a black dude's coming in there or whatever, and he's like, "Excuse me as I whip this out," and everyone's like, "No!" or whatever, because he's going.
Everyone freaked the fuck.
Right, exactly, because he's going to pull his dick out. But anyways, he pulls out the writ,
which is so funny.
Yes.
Let me tell you right now, that is it's the funniest thing.
I agree.
It's comedic genius.
He pulls out the writ and he goes over like the fact that he's the new sheriff and whatnot. And then everybody pulls out a gun on him. And they're just like, everyone has a gun. And then he pulls out a gun on himself and he's like, "Any one of y'all move and the nigger's gonna get it." or whatnot. And then like everyone's like, "Oh!" He's like, "I told you."
Yeah, but like why'd they freak out?
What do you mean?
Why'd they freak out? If they were they wanted him die.
Right.
Was this like a reference to something I didn't get?
No, that's what are you talking about? Okay, so Okay, for anyone who hasn't seen this, you should have seen it because there's tons of spoilers. But
and Jason told you to watch it 2 weeks ago.
Yes, but everybody has a gun trained on him because they're going to get his ass out of town. He pulls out his own gun, sticks it to his throat, starts talking in a different voice, going, "Any of y'all move, this nigger's going to get it." And then everyone's like, "What?" And he's in his other voice like, "Please help me, somebody, please help me," or whatever. Yeah. And then the people start pulling down their, like, putting their guns away. Yeah. And then the one guy is like, the guy still has his gun on him. He's like, "You gonna put your gun down, or is he gonna get it?" Yeah. And the woman who was just like asking to get him killed is like, "Aren't you gonna put your gun down? Yeah. I want to see him get shot." And then he starts dragging himself out of there. And then that woman again is like, and everyone's like frozen in fear. And she's like, "Isn't anybody gonna help that poor boy?" And then he drags his ass into the bar, and then he's like, into the jail cell. Stupid. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the sheriff's officer.
Yeah. So you don't find the comedy in that? I mean, the fact that these like white fucking racist pieces of shit were like, "Fuck this asshole," and then it's like it all gets turned on its head. First of all because he's smart, but like they're just so dumb. I know it's like you point out, it's like this blatantly asinine joke and shit, but it's commenting on the world. I mean, it comments on things that like...
What's it commenting on? Break that down for me.
It comments on things even like, nowadays, today. Like, I feel like this comments on even today.
Yeah.
Because, like, you have these, like, all right, we're going to get a little political with this shit.
Yeah,
but, like... For instance, the Derek Chauvin thing last year. Okay. People for years have been crying about, "Hey, man, this type of shit has been happening and this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's on the street. This is really happening." And I'm not going to say a certain race of people, but a certain group of people are like, "Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. That's all bullshit."
So you're saying it's commenting on how everybody wants something to happen, and then when it's happening, they feign fear or they feign like empathy or whatever.
I don't even know if it's feigned. Yeah. It's like this trigger slips for them, and now all of a sudden it's this fucking big deal.
Oh, that's interesting. And I feel like the commentary is less poignant there. I could see them saying something about how people feign empathy when I don't know, something's happening, but they actually wanted it to happen the whole time. But if you're saying that it's like,
I think it's the opposite because they're concerned about this dude that's like now got a gun to him that like so weird. They were just about to shoot him themselves.
So then what is it even commenting on? The human condition?
I don't know if it's so much the human condition, but like now that somebody else is doing, or I like somebody else is causing this harm. So now it's like, oh fuck, like it's almost like I'm trying to like compared to like the 1960s because it's better to compare it to the 1960s. Okay, yeah. But like how the fact that like these fucking black people had this terrible shit happening to them on a regular basis, in addition with those people that were standing by doing nothing about it, and then it's on camera, and then these people that were just like perfectly okay with it are like, "Oh my god, how could that happen? We have to fucking change this thing." And then that's when like how civil rights were first passed in the first place, man. Like these people who didn't give a fuck just a short period of time, it's thrown in their face now, and now it's like, oh fuck, like we need to fucking change what's going on in America. And I think that's
the way that you read the scene is that's what he's commenting on.
That's what my read of this scene is. Yeah, so I can see if you don't feel the same, that's fine. But all right, so Gene Wilder shows up at this point in time. Another fucking... I love Gene Wilder, man. Another comedic genius.
It's weird because Gene Wilder, one of the things that's always said about Gene Wilder is that he has excellent comedic timing.
Yes.
That this guy just had a very funny persona about him because the way he delivered things was just like naturally very funny. He had a good...
For instance, timing. Who are you? My name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Yeah.
Just like, I laughed.
Yeah. You had seen this movie before, too?
So I saw this movie when I was a young child. Okay. Like, I was probably like 10 or 12 years old when I first saw this movie. This is my first time seeing this movie as an adult.
Okay.
And man, it cracked me up. Okay. So, Gene Wilder, that character is like, right off the bat, he's like, hey.
Jimmy the Kid?
Something like that, because he's like crazy fast or whatnot. And he's like, let me show you how fast I am or whatever, and they do this whole scene with his chess piece, and like he doesn't move, nothing moves, of course, on the chess piece. The chess piece is gone, of course, right?
In his holster.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, they get to know each other for a minute or two, and then Bart is just like, hey, I'm gonna go do my job or whatnot. I don't care. Yeah. And Gene Wilder,
and he's obviously the most like level-headed dude.
Yes.
Like he's the first person not to refer to him offensively as a black guy. He's just like, are you black?
Gene Wilder is like the first decent person.
Decent person, yeah.
He's like...
maybe the only decent person throughout.
Yeah, things change. So, just...
sure.
Like more commentary on America. Gene Wilder is like, hey man, I don't, you should kind of just mail it in. Like just stay here, don't do anything, because nobody else out there is going to accept you. And he's like, no,
you're going to get hurt.
Right. And I'm going to do good things and then people are going to accept me, whatnot. Sure. So he goes outside to do his thing and he walks up to that lady who was getting beat up earlier, the old lady. Good morning, ma'am. Up yours, nigger. Like, just fucking brutal, man. And then what happens next is those people that were in charge of the building of the railroad, they send Mongrel because they're like, all right, we got this guy, big fucking dude. He's going to go in, he's going to rough up people, and this is going to start to get the people out of the fucking town or whatever.
Yeah, and he's going to rough up the sheriff.
Right, like, exactly. He's going to rough up the sheriff.
Like he'll kill everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
but then he's there at the end of the day.
So then he gets the better of Mongrel. Yeah. Bart shows up, gets the better of Mongrel, locks his ass up into the jail. Yeah. So now this is when because he shows up as a Western Union delivery man. Sure. Package for Mongrel, whatever, and then it explodes in his face and whatnot. And then that's how they arrest him.
And then they do the Looney Tunes music.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And so then they arrest him, throw him in the cell, and then this is when people like start to like change already, because then this is when the
old lady comes.
Old lady comes up. And he's like, "I'm sorry about the up yours, nigger." Earlier.
And then she's also like, you'll have the good sense not to tell anybody that I, was nice to you.
Right, exactly. That, yeah. So then we get to the Mel Brooks shit that I do hate, because this is when they're introducing the German lady.
Oh, never mind.
Yep. Yeah. So then we have...
there's a Mel Brooks scene in this one?
Well, this is what I call a Mel Brooks scene.
Oh, okay. I see.
So it's like comedic show tunes for like 10 minutes for like no real reason, like to introduce this lady that didn't need this long of a thing. And this is like one of the few things that I didn't like about the film.
Sure.
So then Bart shows up though to talk to the lady, and the background to this lady is she's connected to Headley, and she's going to like seduce Bart
and then break his heart.
Yes, and then break his heart.
Yeah.
Of course,
he can be demoralized, and then he'd be doing less of a good job.
Yes.
By the way, the convolutedness of the background plan, it gets more and more intense as every scene comes out.
Of course. So then they go backstage to talk for a little while or whatnot, and then of course they hook up and shit, and the plan backfires because she falls head over heels for Bart rather than him falling head over heels for her, and then he just leaves her basically, and
because her whole show tune scene was about how she had never been satisfied by a guy.
Yes.
That was the whole song.
Yes.
And then that night, she gets satisfied by that guy.
By Bart.
Yeah, for sure.
So Bart heads back to the jail. They wake Mongo's ass up, and they try to talk to him and figure out what's going on.
He's like, we're sending you back. Yep. You've been pardoned.
Yep. And Mongo really doesn't know shit, though. And so Bart goes to check out the railroad, actually.
Well, and Mongo says, I think... I don't know, part of the important, in quotes, part of the scene is that for some reason he's like the first person, the sheriff is the first person to ever not, hurt him, like whip him up and shit. And so he's like, actually, like, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I like you more.
I'll stay here.
Yeah. And he's just like, well, like, what are they doing over there?
Yeah.
And then that's when they just like, oh, the railroad. Then.
Yeah. And then Gene Wilder, or Jim and Bart go head over to see what's going on. And the Englishman Headley is putting together a crew of the worst people. So, of course, there's like Nazis there and stuff like that.
There's Nazis, there's KKK members, there's Mexicans.
Banditos. Specifically Bandito Mexicans.
Okay. And then there's... Arabs.
Yes. Every bad stereotype.
Yeah.
So, and then so they want to infiltrate the camp. So they see a couple of the Klan members, and Jim's like, "Hey, I think I seen one of those black dudes over here, or whatever." And then Bart jumps on, "Where the white women at?" And then of course they go after him, and they beat up the Klansmen, and they take over.
Take the robes.
Yes. So they take over the robes and they go to sign up on Headley's paper of like what they're gonna, do or whatnot. And is this where? No. Okay. So then they go to sign up, and as they're signing up, they see. Jim sees Bart's hand like kind of go out or whatever.
Yeah, because he's
going to
sign some papers.
He's like, I told you just to, keep the fire. You got to stay away from the ashes or whatever. And then Headley's sidekick rips off his mask, sees that it's a black dude, and he's like, it's time for me to do my Jesse Owens impression. He just takes off running. Which, of course, makes me laugh as well. Because in 1874, Jesse Owens is from the 60s. Oh, I love that. I love shit.
Well, they've made already at this point some references to...
I mean, there's literally Nazis in the scene. Yeah, I love shit like that. So
you like shit like that?
Yeah, I think it's very funny because it's an out of place comedy, so it's very good. Yeah. So
it's like LOL so random stuff.
Yes, exactly that. So and then like the people that are in the town are like, all right, we'll work together. Bart and Jim go to the black people that were working on the railroad and ask them to come help, with the town's defense. So
they're going to go find out why they're going to investigate what's going to go on with that railroad. And then as soon as they get there, the sheriff's, Bart's friend, goes, we're going to go right through that town.
Right.
And then that's when he realizes, that's what this is all about.
And so they recruit the black dudes to come help them defend the town. And the townies are like, okay, fine. We'll make a treaty and we'll give some land to the niggers and the chinks. Yeah. But we don't want no Irish around here. Yeah. And then the black people are like, no, fuck that, man. And then he's like, all right, fine. Even the Irish will give to you as well. And now, so now we jump back over to Headley's crew, and they're like,
and the plan is to pull a Three Amigos.
Yes,
they're going to make a fake town.
Yes, yeah. So now they jump back over to Headley, and he's giving his speech about his pledge allegiance to Headley and whatnot. Yeah. And he's like, "All right, repeat after me. Repeat after me." And he's like, "I solemnly swear to follow the rules of Headley," and they're all like, I follow the rules of Hemi or whatever. And he's like, that's Headley. And so this is when I finally laughed out loud at that joke, the Headley thing, because this joke has been laced like constantly or whatever. And this is where this is what I'm talking about comedic genius. Because you lace it for like pointless. And then it's like this blast of it. That's very funny. So definitely a very funny scene. So then Headley and his crew, they're going to go to the town, and besides the fake town, they also set up a toll booth that they get to the toll booth and they're like, shit, we got to pay. Anybody got any change? And they're like, they have to individually pay the toll booth like one at a time through this fucking thing to go rampage and destroy this fucking town. But of course they care about the toll booth. Typical Mel Brooks thing. So then in the middle of this, yeah, I'm sorry. My notes jump because then a bunch of silliness happens. The guys show up to the town and they start looking at all like the cardboard cutouts, like punching the cardboard cuts, shooting the cardboard cutouts. And then that's when, of course, Bart sets off the dynamite for the town, starts to blow up the town. They all go to combat. Everything happens. And, of course, the town, they're fighting all over the place and whatnot. And then it just cuts, okay? This is another Mel Brooks thing. Like, this happens in Spaceballs, all these different movies. And then it just randomly goes to this, like, show tune thing that they're doing, like production for, like a movie or whatnot. And there's this French producer, and they're doing all this, like, hat and dance number kind of thing going on. And for, like, 5 minutes. And it's just this, like, production thing going on. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. And then, of course, the cowboys bust through one of the walls, and they're fighting through, and then all those guys get involved in the fighting, and everybody's fighting at this fucking point in time. And so from this brawling, you go to the Headley guy. He's like, there's a whole bunch of silly shit that happens with this, and they finally chase down Headley or whatever. They capture Headley. They do that whole thing, and actually, what happens is Bart and Jim, when they're chasing after Headley, see that the movie Blazing Saddles is playing on the, so they go to see what happens in the movie.
Yeah, well, kind of. They kick his ass before.
Yeah, they kick his ass, but he runs away.
Yeah.
And so they go to see the movie of what's going on, and then that's when in the movie
because they break out of the studio while this is happening.
Yes, yeah.
And then they're chasing Headley.
Headley.
They chase him to the MGM Studios movie theater.
Yes.
Where he runs in.
Yes.
Sits down.
Yes.
And then leaves for some reason.
Yeah.
And then outside,
yep.
They catch him.
Yes.
And then after they catch him, let's go see how this finishes. And
is that how it ends up?
Yeah.
Like, okay, my bad. I got a little bit confused and whatnot. Then
you know why you got a little confused? Because this guy,
it's just ridiculous really nonsense going on, man. It's just so fucking good, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Because here's the thing: Mel Brooks did this scene, and it's like, you know, they fight into like Hollywood, and then they like go to see the movie, because Mel Brooks was one of the first people to ever do this like meta kind of thing going on and whatnot, where it's like a movie in a movie, because we know it's a movie and whatnot. So, all right, man, and that is pretty much as ridiculously all over the place as that was. That's because Blazing Saddles is ridiculously all over the place, man. So let me hit you with a couple things, bro.
Yeah, please.
$2 million budget for this movie. Okay. $2 million. $120 million return in 1974.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So 3 Academy Awards for this movie. Wow. American Academy of Films, 6th funniest film of all time. They have this as the 6th funniest film of all fucking time. And man, you know, but if you were in charge of the Academy, how would you recommend this?
What did this win Academy Awards for? Do you know?
Screenplay, I think, and like music. Like it was not like Best Actor or any of the important shit. It was all like sideline things and whatnot. So there you go, my man. If you were in charge of the Academy, though, I mean, you would clearly recommend this. In what way?
Okay, so the reason I said we'll come back to this when I was talking about the scene inside the church is because the scene inside the church was the closest I came to cracking a smile. But otherwise, I didn't even smile through this. I think one of the cool, one of the testaments to a comedy is that it'll make you laugh even when you don't want to. And I say that specifically because the way that I watch stand-up is that I go into it going, okay, I'm not going to laugh. I don't want to laugh.
You don't want to look ridiculous.
I don't. No.
Laughing is ridiculous.
It's not even about looking ridiculous. It's about like real comedy will hit you whether you want it or not.
Sure.
And whenever I watch stand up specifically, because I like stand up, I always go into it going, I'm not going to laugh at this guy. This guy's going to be bad. And when I'm cracking up, I'm like, this is a funny fucking human being, right? This movie, obviously, so it's a comedy. I go into it. I'm like, okay, we're not going to laugh. This is going to be dumb. And actually, with Mel Brooks, I went into it with a bias because I know I don't like Mel Brooks. I had watched Spaceballs and didn't like it, and I had watched Robin Hood Men in Tights recently and didn't like it. I liked it when I was a kid because all the jokes were really silly. And then I watched it as an adult, and I was just like, these jokes are really stupid. And so when I went into this movie, I'm just like, this is probably going to be another stupid one. It was an older Mel Brooks movie, so I probably like it less even. And I promise you, I didn't like the closest I came to cracking a smile was that scene in the church. Otherwise, I was supremely bored at this movie. This movie has a classic Mel Brooks thing that I say a lot when I talk about Mel Brooks, and this was just like the clearest day example. Mel Brooks is like Kevin Smith. They are directors that are so far up their own ass that they think they're more clever than they actually are. And this movie was not clever. This movie was not funny. Every joke was as simple a joke as you can write. It is literally the most obvious, simple, plain as Jane joke that can be written. And the idea that I had in my head while I was watching this movie of people laughing to this made me laugh more than anything that's happened in this movie. So no, I don't recommend it. This movie was arguably I think I can make an argument for this being the worst movie we've watched for Minority Report. Yeah. So what do you think? Did it hold up?
So I want to start off with saying that, would you say, okay, so you've seen a few Mel Brooks movies.
This is the third now that I've seen.
Okay. Would you say this is the best of the three? Or the worst of the three? Or the middle of the three? That's the only places it could be.
I say that this is, of the three Mel Brooks movies that I've watched, this is the one I've liked the least.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't necessarily think that this is the worst of the three.
Yeah.
I have some weird nostalgia for Men in Tights.
Yes.
And so when I watched it, there were still some things that I was expecting to happen that I was just like, okay, that was okay. This I enjoyed less, and I think it's because I had zero nostalgia to it. I think that if I'd never seen Robin Hood Men in Tights and then watched it now, I'd have been just as disappointed.
Sure. This movie has it held up? It's, I mean, ridiculously, obviously. Would this be something that like a new person might enjoy? I don't know. I can't really speak for that because it comes from a different time period. This movie is great. It's art. It's definitely one of the best comedies of all time.
You would agree with them placing it as like the third or sixth best movie of all time, or comedy of all time?
I don't even know if I would put it as far down as sixth. I'd probably put it even higher than that. I went into this movie the exact same as you.
Yeah.
Like, I barely remembered this movie as a kid.
Yeah.
There were definitely things I fully forgot about as a kid.
Of course, yeah.
And I expected to go, this is going to be an old comedy. It's going to be dumb. I'm not going to laugh at all. And I think I'm going to find this to be incredibly stupid. And I mean, I couldn't think of something further from the truth. I laughed relentlessly through this movie. Like, not every minute, not every joke, but every couple minutes, I was literally laughing out loud to this film. It's just so well done to me. Is it dated? Absolutely. Is it raunchy? Yeah.
I didn't even... because like going into this, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're gonna watch Blazing Saddles," like, "Wow, you're really gonna have a problem with all the racism in it." And like, sure,
Sure,
okay, but I get that it was talking. It was being very crass about racism,
right? It was Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
it was very. Have you ever watched a Richard Pryor stand up?
No.
Okay,
but I understand that it was commenting on racism in a crass way.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they were being intentionally racist. Clearly.
Sure. Right, of course it's not. Yeah,
clearly not.
I mean, first of all, Mel Brooks is a Jewish dude, too.
And,
so like,
sure, yeah. And so there's this idea, I think, especially among the people that listen to us, that think that I am somehow sensitive to just racial like slurs and things like that.
Sure.
And it's never that.
Right.
There is an intentionality behind some things that I disagree with, right?
Of course.
And I don't want anybody to mistake the idea that I would be uncomfortable with this movie because it had racial language.
Yeah.
This movie was made in a time that was just getting over some very difficult racial moments. And it was written by people that were being very crass about racism. And it was commenting on how stupid racism is. That didn't bother me.
Yeah.
That was all fine.
I think so. Like when we went, I knew you weren't going to have a problem with this movie from that point of view because you were able to understand what it was dealing with or what it was about. The things that you don't like usually is if it's like a 1980s movie that's just like you faggot or whatever, and things like that are not done.
If it's supposed to be funny that they're calling a guy like a slur or something, then I'm excuse me, what?
Right.
This wasn't that wasn't supposed to be funny.
Right.
It was supposed to be commenting on how ignorant people were.
Yes.
I get that.
Yep.
The thing that I didn't like about this movie wasn't the racial words. It was that I thought that the comedy was bad.
Yeah, I get it.
And I just want the audience to know that. I feel like you knew that.
Yeah. The thing about this film, though, man, I mean, just from a film point of view, this thing is universally enjoyed, man. On a Metacritic,
I'm a part of the universe.
No, on Metacritic, 77, man, B minus.
Yeah, okay.
88 on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.7 on IMDb. So another B minus.
Zack Snyder's Justice League got better than all this.
I mean, I highly doubt that to be true. In fact, I would bet money it's like a 40 something on Metacritic. And to me, the only way you could really dislike this film is if you're easily offended by things because you just don't understand like what the comedy's trying to do here, or you don't like fun. And I mean, I get that if this isn't your brand of fun, that's totally understandable. I can see why like a person who didn't grow up in the 80s would like be like, I don't like this. That it's just not good humor to me. Go ahead.
Zack Snyder's Justice League got like a 54 on Metacritic.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So like, this is to me one of the best comedies I've ever watched, and I really
comedy is a really hard thing to do.
Of course, especially old comedy.
Well, one, it's very subjective.
Yes,
more subjective than I think maybe anything. And two, it's very, very hard to age.
Yes,
it is incredibly hard to age.
Yes.
It is very difficult to find a movie that 20 years later still makes you laugh.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what it was funny, it stops being funny.
Yep. And as I watched this movie, I thought to myself of all the things that were like inspired by Westerns, because like one of the things that like Tarantino, Django Unchained was obviously inspired by this. I mean, you can even tell by like the ridiculous outfit Django, where it's very similar.
100% thought that while I was watching this. I'm just like, oh, this really does feel like it inspired Django somehow.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thing about this is I just could not stop thinking of other things this has inspired, like other Western movies have inspired in general. And we went really far in the past with this 1974 film. So we are now going to our most newest film, the film that are also inspired by Westerns, samurai films. So what I would suggest, prepare yourself for battle, sharpen your katana, find your rice paddy hat, your kimono, and join us live as we hunt for redemption in 13 Assassins.
I don't think you needed to do the accent.
It was my Mongolian accent, which is ridiculous because we're going to do a Japanese movie. Where the white women at?